Thanks everyone for having us here. So I will maybe do like a 2-minute talk to setting up the stage, right? So what does DePIN modularity mean, right? So what are we talking about today right now? So IO tags, so we have been in the industry for so long, 2017 actually, So we know starting from IoT blockchain now evolving into like the leader in the DePIN space. So we know like a lot of pain points in the DePIN space, right? For example, DePIN has a very large like a tech stack. We talk with all sorts of like a DePIN builders, and this is the problem. Because large tech stack means you have to hire a lot of people, you have to raise enough amount of money to have them to actually building from the hardware, the device abstraction, the streaming protocol, the storage protocol, all the way to on-chain smart contract, mobile application, web application. Then you go to the market, right? How long this takes? 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. So we have a few projects here we invest into. So they usually take 1 to 2 years to just go to the market, not start to thinking about the demand side yet. So we see this as a very serious problem in DePIN space. If we want to see DePIN kind of grow as much as DeFi or NFT or game, like all sorts of things we saw before, right, in the previous cycles. So we feel like we should reduce like the barrier for people to entry, to build, right, to grow, to thrive here. That's why like IoTax, we launched like a white paper actually a few weeks ago, really talking about our thesis about reducing like the barrier for builders. That's called like a modularity. Basically trying to break this like a big chunk of tag into different pieces. Then we have an expert, for example, like a Risk Zero, right? So they are really expert in the ZK space. So they can take on some of those like a verification, ZKP stuff, like seriously. And also we have like a Network 3, so they are doing like a lot of like edge AI computing, so they can like easily using the modularity like a tech stack we're trying to put in together. That's why like we call this like a DePIN modularity in action, right? So I think I did a good job to setting up the space, right? What we're talking about today. Okay, man, let's get started. So how about we start from Jacob? Maybe give us like a short intro about what you do. What does the Risk Zero do?
Yeah, I'm the product lead for the protocol side, helping us build this whole ZK stack.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thanks IoTax for kind of like making it up, and EV3, and like just everyone for coming today. My name is Leanid. I'm a head of ecosystem at Network 3. We are building the infrastructure for Edge AI, leveraging IoT devices, utilizing decentralized federated learning, and many more cool things, counting 270,000 nodes already. Just closed our seed round, and we have a lot of investors in this room. So, and I'm also a student at UC Berkeley. So it's exciting times, and thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, of course. Maybe tell us more about like you guys just closed a big round, 5 or 6 mils, right, from the top-notch investors, EV3 included, us too. And how do you guys feel about building like a DePIN project?
That's a great question. I think like when you get an investment, it's kind of like a trust and like understanding that like you actually build something what is meaningful and has a foundational infrastructure. And the way we like position ourselves, we are clearly an infrastructure, and we will be like a solution for many other projects. And that's kind of like, that is what we build. That's what we are trying to promote and like kind of like build our product around. And the way how we like position ourselves is, I don't see like any competitor in the room, even if you're doing edge AI. I would much more collaborate with you towards getting more user adoption than like trying to compete on a small piece of cake. Like DePIN is, as you heard in the previous panel, is relatively new. It's like what, like 12, 13 months old. So, and I think like what we do at Network 3 is actually kind of like building the layer which is like can work basically with any project. Even if you're trying to compete with us, we still can work together.
Yeah, congratulations again. So talking about like the modules, right? So we in the DePIN tech stack, so we do see like the verification being like a very important module. So maybe Jacob can give us some your thoughts about why this verification is important, and how would you guys tackle this problem?
Yeah, so if you don't know a little bit about Risk Zero, we have a ZK VM, which allows you to just write ZK programs in Rust. I think traditionally ZK has been a little broken, mainly from the idea of DevX. So I think most of us in the audience, if you have a computer science degree, I can ask you to write the game of chess. You can get it done in a few hours. However, if I asked you to write the game of chess represented by polynomials, I have a feeling less of us will be able to code this game. So since RISC-0 targets this general purpose ZK VM, now developers can generate ZK programs simply writing Rust. The knock on these traditionally has been that this introduces more overhead and you get more cost. Recently, the past year, we've done 170x in performance with cost and proving time. And we're actually getting to the price parity with custom circuits. So currently, we can verify an EVM transaction for 1/10 of a cent. And we hope to be at 1/100th by the end of the year. Why is this important? Well, blockchain execution not only is limited, but it's also expensive. So if we can do off-chain verification for cheaper, that's great. On top of, in ETH, you have a 30 million gas limit. This is actually, people bump up to this quite often. And since we can infinitely string proofs together, you can almost have boundless verifiable execution that you can still settle to the chain.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense, right? So for the DePIN verification, because everybody has a lot of hope for DePIN being like a real shit in the crypto market, right? So look at like what has been, done by has been done in the past few years is all about DeFi, gaming, NFT. That's very hype stuff. So I think a DePIN is sort of like a vehicle that was, carrying the hope with a lot of people, including us. Crypto is actually bringing some real shit, real good shit actually to the real world. So that's a hope. Verification being like a very important, one step, I think, going to this goal. Because if the data, the utility coming from the devices is not verified, then there's no way to ensure like quality of services, right? To ensure like the data is authentic, so you can feed the data into like an AI model you guys are working on, for example. So we cannot do anything with junk data or like a spamming data. I think that's kind of one problem. Like we have to work together to address this issue. Drilling down on ZK a little bit more, right? So for Jacob, I know you guys spend a lot of engineering times and research times to make sure like your ZK knowledge is superior compared to other competitors. It's more programmable, faster. My background is cryptography, by the way. I know every shit about ZK. So maybe you can give some update on that.
Yeah. So, we're currently at 1/10 of a cent for an EVM transaction. I think that's kind of becoming a standard benchmark. We're currently working on two things to just get to that 1/100th thing. One is a thing called an accelerator. So sometimes when you're proving an EVM block, or when you prove an EVM block, it's mainly dominated by just Keccak hashes, proving those. So you can kind of write a custom circuit for that, and then when you're in our ZKVM, you can just kind of do a syscall to that custom circuit. And then there's a lot of debate currently around theoretical proof improvement. So you've probably heard of like STO, Circle Starks, M31, and all that hype. We feel that might be faster than ours one day by about 30%, but we're really focused on just general engineering upgrades. We see a lot of like low-hanging fruit currently that could give us another 5-10x. So.
That's wonderful. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit to Leanid, right? So you guys also there is an AI angle to look at the network 3. Maybe tell us a little bit more about the AI angle, what you guys are working on.
So we are working on actually kind of like many things, starting from just like, it really depends who you are. If you're a business or who you're like an AI developer or you're like someone who want to provide a node. So one of the cool things I love to talk about is like, I go to UC Berkeley and I see how everyone is obsessed with like projects at Y Combinator. And whenever I see like some Y Combinator project, which is like doing AI sales marketing throughout emails, and they're using ChatGPT behind, but they're like YC Combinator company, awesome. And then I'm asking myself, okay, you as a business, you install this awesome application which will boost your sales, but you utilize just the centralized AI, which is like basically all of your business data, it just goes into centralized model. So, and I think that's kind of like one of the solutions we're just building, that like you can be building in the future fully decentralized, fully secure and scalable AI agents, which will be almost free of charge for you. And it's kind of like one of the main things we're working, either if you're a business, here in my pocket, I have like 1 billion parameters LLM, which was trained in the data is coming like from our IoT devices, which did like edge computing. So, and I think that's kind of like awesome things we've been working, we are continuing working, and we will be working more. We already have certain like talks about the future Series A. We see like that we are growing like about 1,000 to 2,000 nodes every day. And it's kind of like an exciting times to just be in the DePIN space, especially in this field. And I think it's certainly like for us important is that we are focused on a data transmission, like a trusted execution environment, decentralized federated learning. That's kind of like all what our main focus is. And I clearly see what we are addressing, whom we are addressing, and what is kind of like the future of us and like partners we have.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I also heard about like you guys start to trying to sell the devices, right? Like the boxes actually mine the network 3 token.
Yeah, so
can we just order some from you right now?
Yeah, so we already preparing our mining machines, which will be which we'll like partner with IOTax towards double mining and like some cool exciting things which you will definitely see very often. So follow our Twitter like Network 3 IOTax for some cool things. But the point is the mining machine is kind of like will be making our network more secure with like the IDs. So basically stay tuned about it. It comes up very soon, and it's like the promise of a DePIN that you have a decentralized infrastructure. As for now, you can go and download our app on App Store. Like I think like the installment of a node will take you probably less than 60 seconds. Like we try to make it as simple as possible. And one kind of like insight from like DePIN industry and like was especially like Network 3, we don't love to talk about like some super complicated Web3 words when like basically our main approach is to address Web2 audience. And I think we are less and less trying to just promote our Web3 infrastructure and kind of like addressing more of Web2. So that's why like the ways of installing the Network 3 node is simple as hell. So just go and check it out.
Very cool, very cool. How about for Risk Zero? Do you guys have a plan for TGE? What's the biggest use case for like a Risk Zero token?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So our token is coming up soon, very soon. It's actually at the end of this month. So please stay updated about it. Second thing is, I mean, the utility of a token, it's kind of like when you're trying to do the edge AI like infrastructure, and you ask yourself, we would never interact with a blockchain if there were like no sense for interacting with a blockchain, which wouldn't establish certain consensus between like the nodes providers, and the ones who are sitting on the other end. So it's kind of like you build a robust infrastructure which puts certain things on chain, certain things are staying off chain. So token is like brings for utility for your community. So that's kind of like what I can tell is coming from the Network 3 side.
All right. So asking again to Jacob, right? The same question. So Risk Zero, do you guys have a plan for TGE soon? What's the use case of this token in the ZK world?
Yeah, so we currently see a gap in the market. You really need this like full stack to deploy a ZK application. And we've fully audited ZK VM, that's performant, first step. Next is we recently launched our verifiers on mainnet, so actually having verifiable verification of your zero knowledge proofs. And I think the next step is quite clear, and that is a prover network. Why is that the case? Most people prove ZKPs in the cloud. Turns out AWS is quite expensive. And on top of it, AWS doesn't give you the best liveness guarantees. So having a network of provers, there's quite big entities out there that can prove for quite cheap. Coordinate and making sure that one, you're getting your proofs a lot faster and cheaper. And two, to have better liveness guarantees. If you're putting out there a protocol that's relying on validity proofs, you want to make sure that they get there. How you design incentives and ensure that these people deliver the proofs. It's nice to have that be an incentivized protocol. We're currently working through the design on that as well.
Okay, looking forward to it. So I think we can just take in some questions from the audience, right? How do you guys think? Any questions? We'll maybe take 2 or 3 of them.
Feel free to ask anything.
Maybe you should give out some incentives, right? Whoever have a good question, getting like a N3, like a device for mining. Oh, see? Incentive works. Yeah, so that's a really good question. I take it. I give out like a mining machine later. Yeah, so basically 2.0 is about like a modularity, like I kind of explained about, right? So we want to define what does this category, DePIN category actually needed, especially for developers. So we want to kind of scope out different like, infra modules for them. Like I've talked about identity, storage, verification, data streaming, what else? Maybe indexing and analytics, right? There are like 8 or 9 of them. So for each of them, we have no intention to build like in-house. What we want to do is try to have like a unified security layer so we can pass on like a security from IoTeX to those different infra modules like a risk zero. So they can actually taking on the job of verification of like a ZK, or like a DePIN device data, for example, right? Or maybe another kind of DePIN module could be, DePIN infra module could be like they just, streaming the data coming from the devices, basically like a POP-SUB protocol, then they store the data in a way. So we feel like have enough sort of like a scoping for those modules will help this industry actually to evolve, because we have top-notch like infra builders, like Filecoin, there are so many of them, Rwave, Tableland, Quaywell, right? So they have like excellent technology, but in terms of like the go-to-market, the use case, they're mostly like idling right now. So we want to embrace those kind of infra builders, because DePIN is something like we're talking about something real. We're talking about like 1 million devices sending data every second to the infrastructure, right? So thinking about how much ZK you have to do and how much like a storage you have to do. So those are like a huge infra needs. Yeah, I can say this because I have been like working at Google for 5 years, doing like a lot of infra projects, and then Uber for another 2 years, basically leading like Uber's entire like a security team during its hypergrowth stage. So I see like how crazy amount of traffic so you will be seeing actually on the infra side if you're like a DePIN demand is kind of taking off. For now, DePIN don't have too much demand right now. That's another problem we have to solve, guys. But like once there's a demand, the current infrastructure will not work. Right, so this is mostly why we're working on 2.0. Cool. Maybe another question from this lady?
Yeah, I have a question about networking, because I know you do a lot about the, can you hear me?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I can hear.
I know you guys do a lot of work about, for example, inference and also validation about the models. But I think one common problem is like a lot of AI training layers right now is that they have a model, data, but they don't have many uses. So how do you tackle this problem?
Awesome. Yeah. So the question is is basically we all get data, we all get like the edge devices. What kind of like the use cases? So the use case I basically just described is all of those wrappers which are like actually generating like revenues. And I spoke with one venture capitalist in San Francisco, and she was like, "Oh, all of your like confidential computing valuations are so high. I'm just investing in like AI projects which are like 20 million valuation, but already like generating huge revenue. Like just started like 5 months ago." And then I'm like kind of like educating and talking what exactly we're building and what is like the reason we put behind Network 3 and like the ecosystem. So I would say the most important thing for getting the demand side for your product for confidential computing is first price, because at the end of the day, every business is making a decision on the price and like just comparative advantages between like each of the options they have. Second aspect is how exactly would we define what problem we are solving for them? Is we are in this room discussing all of those aspects, and we understand that like we are solving an important question. But whenever you kind of like go out and you actually start talking with just like people who just pay in Starbucks using their app and just unloading the millions of dollars every hour using their credit card, how exactly you address those people and their problem and their needs? And Yeah, so basically everything what is related with the confidential computing where you need very low latency for your data availability. That's also like something what we like in other projects we're working with. And just on top of my head, basically any healthcare, like the amount of research I saw at UC Berkeley and actually scientists talking to, and I'm asking, so you have a lot of data sets, it's kind of like you can tune it all, like, but they're saying, oh, but we can't upload it anywhere, we can't do anything. We have like almost terabytes of like data sets, but we just cannot do anything with it. And whenever you have like a systems which can do the distributed computing and use encryptions and get your model fully tuned and like trained with your proprietary data sets, that's kind of something where like I think it's kind of like the future. And it's also the other thing is, imagine we all use OpenAI and someone would raid an office of OpenAI like next hour, and probably they will just turn off the servers, and like most of projects which are using ChatGPT either API or just like GPT-4 will just crack. Nothing is going to happen. So, and when you have certainly like the decentralization on the side of AIs, that's kind of like important.
All right, we will perhaps taking the last question from the audience. Last call, guys, to earn the mining machine, right? Sponsored by Network 3.
No, I just want to thank IoTax and just like everyone, like they're doing an awesome job. Like all the AMAs, all of the sessions I ever attended with IoTax, they're all warming and nice. And like the amount of support we're getting, basically any question we have, they're always willing to solve. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
We like genuinely appreciate it.
Yeah, cool, man.
So,
yeah, definitely. We think like a DePIN space, right? So not just we need like more builders, we need also like a lot of public goods. So that's another interesting question we want to talk about a little bit more. So for example, in the last year, we built something called DePINscan.com. It's basically aggregate all the DePIN projects information, the device content, everything into just one single website, right? It's like a CMC, CoinMarketCap. As a developer, as a miner, as an investor, as a speculator, you go to the website, you see, oh, Risk0 is doing great, N3 is doing great, we have so many projects here, so they are doing great. I'm going to buy the token. And also, what's the ROI if I buy the device to mine the token, right? So we feel like there should be like a more kind of public goods and tools, which is not around about making money. It's around making like the industry slightly better or more visible or more understandable by just the everyday people, right? So do you guys have any like thoughts on some sort of like a public good we should be building in the DePIN space?
I love DePINscan, and whenever I see like, I grew up in Belarus, and whenever I see like nodes coming from my hometown, I'm like, that's awesome. Like I'm just like, how you guys discover? Like I'm just, it's awesome. Or whenever I see the increase in Berkeley, I'm like, okay, it's my influence. It's like it works. And whenever I see like we grew, I remember when I joined, we had maybe like 30 or 20-ish thousand nodes, and now we are like almost 300,000. And it's like they're growing very fast, and it's an awesome analytics. So like we can see the number of countries. Like go to DePINscan and check it out. And there's also like a lot of other DePIN projects. So you guys do an awesome job and aggregate like an enormous amount of data. So,
for sure. Jacob, how do you think?
Yeah, I think Risk0 is really like comes from computer scientists and cryptographers. The ZK-TLS talk before this. I think we're also really interested in sort of advancing the open source internet standards. People at our company love to go to these like talks or conferences for 2 days and only talk about internet standards, which is a little out of my reach. But when we come to like HTTPS and IPFS, they're really running into issues about privacy and security that I think ZK might have a play in the next like 5 years. I don't think we're at the performance yet, but we're at a steep trajectory right now, and it would be really nice to know that in the future, if we could continue to like defragment sensitive data across the internet, I think it'd be very interesting.
Very cool, guys. I think we only have 30 seconds left. Maybe last words, from three of us, starting with Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanna do ZK applications and only write in Rust, check out Risk0. I believe it's just risk0.com.
yeah, just check out, follow our Twitter, follow our socials, just check what we are building, like what is actually going on our side. We have a lot of updates and things happening, so I just can't count like just recent fundraising, mining machine, like ridiculous amount of nodes, and yeah, just stay tuned about us. And if you're in the Bay Area, feel free to grab coffee with me or with our team members.
Yeah, my last word is, DePIN is for everyone. So this is what we are advocating in the 2.0 vision. And at the same time, DePIN is for everyone, right? So we should, as an everyday person, as a type of like a Hmong type of person, we should be able to use DePIN to making our life better. All right, so let's all work together towards this goal, guys. All right, so we will close up this panel. Thank you, guys.